I am the President of Belarus. It is August 2020. The election results have already been announced. I have already claimed more than 80% of the vote. Outside, they call it fraud. Inside this building, nothing has changed. The guards still snap to attention. The doors still open before I reach them. My chair is still warm when I sit down. But my name moves differently now. Alexander Lukashenko, associated with a stolen election, with the forced exile of Sviatlana Tikhanovskaya, with the largest protest in the history of Belarus. Hundreds of thousands filled the streets of Minsk. I watched it on secure monitors, a sea of red and white. They said the vote was not free. The European Union said it was not fair. The United States said it would not recognize the result. I wake up and check the briefings. Sanctions. Another round. Asset freezes. Travel bans. Diplomatic isolation. My country described as a regime. My leadership described as illegitimate. No one raises their voice around me. They measure their words. They pause before saying international community. They avoid eye contact when the reports mention torture allegations in detention centers. Thousands arrested. Security forces deployed. Journalists detained. Opposition figures prosecuted. The system still functions. Orders are carried out. Papers are stamped. Generals stand straight. The machinery of power does not hesitate just because my reputation has shifted. But conversations shorten when I enter. Foreign leaders no longer call directly. Messages arrive through intermediaries. Statements are issued about me, not to me. I have led Belarus since 1994. For decades, stability was my argument. Control was my language. Now, my name triggers sanctions packages in Brussels, emergency meetings in Washington, strategic calculations in Moscow. I feel it in the room: loyalty mixed with caution, obedience mixed with contingency planning. Power still answers to me, but my legitimacy no longer does. 2. I wake before the security briefing arrives. The first rule after 2020 is silence. No unscripted remarks, no improvisation, no acknowledgement of doubt. I cancel the prepared statement. Communication staff rush in within minutes. They remind me that every word is now evidence. Every sentence is translated, dissected, sanctioned. I nod. Then I tell them I will visit a factory in Minsk without prior notice. Unscheduled movement triggers alarms. By the time my motorcade leaves, state television is already reframing it as a planned inspection. Independent channels call it a show of force. Western outlets describe it as a defiant appearance, amid ongoing repression. I have not spoken yet. At the factory, workers stand in lines too straight to be natural. Cameras hover. I step off script. I ask one man what he thinks of the protests. Silence spreads faster than sound. His supervisor stiffens. My security chief moves half a step closer. The man answers carefully. He says stability matters. He does not say my name. By afternoon, headlines read Lukashenko pressures workers in staged visit. Belarus leader confronts citizens after disputed election. I asked one question. It becomes intimidation. Back in my office, I request a direct call with a European diplomat who has refused contact since the sanctions began. My advisors advise against it. They say it will be interpreted as desperation. I make the call anyway. It goes unanswered. Within an hour, a statement appears from Brussels. We remain concerned about the ongoing human rights situation in Belarus. No mention of the call. The silence becomes the message. I sign a decree reshuffling mid-level security officials. Routine bureaucracy. In another year, it would pass unnoticed. Now, analysts call it a purge. Telegram channels speculate about fractures inside the regime. Russian commentators suggest instability. My own ministers ask indirectly whether the changes signal distrust. A reshuffle becomes a crisis. In the evening, I hold a small internal meeting without cameras, no press, no recording devices beyond the mandatory state archive. I speak plainly about sanctions, about dependence on Moscow, about the shrinking space between sovereignty and necessity. By morning, fragments of the discussion leak, distorted. Lukashenko admits weakness. Belarus leader signals full pivot to Russia. I did not use the word weak, but after 2020 my voice no longer belongs to me. It belongs to interpretation. My press secretary asked me to stop deviating from prepared language. She says markets react, diplomats react, protest channels react. Even my pauses create narratives. I approve a public appearance for the next day, without clearing the final transcript. That alone triggers emergency meetings. They fear I will acknowledge the election controversy directly. They fear I will mention detainees. They fear I will imply uncertainty. The unspoken rule is simple strength must look permanent. I know it is not. Power still obeys me. The guards still salute. Decrees still print with my signature. But every action now carries double weight. Governance on one side, interpretation on the other. When I walk into a room, people calculate risk before loyalty. I am still president of Belarus, but my name now enters headlines before I enter buildings. And anything I say, even nothing, becomes proof of something else. 3 night arrives without ceremony. I am still president of Belarus. The building quiets, but it never sleeps. Security rotations change. Surveillance screens glow. Somewhere analysts summarize my movements into reports that will outlive the day. This is the cost, not the protests, not the sanctions, not even the isolation. It is the permanence. Since the 2020 election crisis, I am never alone with a thought that cannot be recorded, leaked, reframed. My face is attached to phrases like disputed vote, mass arrests, international sanctions. My name activates responses in foreign ministries before I finish speaking. Fame used to mean visibility. Now it means monitoring. Every call is logged. Every visitor screened. Every deviation flagged as risk. I have authority over ministries, over budgets, over security forces. But I do not have authority over the narrative that carries my name across borders. Power signs decrees. Reputation edits them. I sit at my desk and review tomorrow's schedule. Prepared remarks, controlled environment, approved questions only. The architecture of caution. No one tells me directly what not to say anymore. They do not have to. I see it in the draft speeches, verbs, softened subjects removed. I see it in the way advisors say, perhaps we avoid that topic. I see it in how foreign leaders choose written statements instead of calls. I still command the state, but I cannot command how I am understood. That is the difference. Influence fades quietly, not in dramatic collapse, but in subtle recalibration. A meeting that becomes a statement that becomes a condemnation that becomes policy. My identity remains fixed president since 1994, but the weight of it has shifted. Leadership once meant control. Now it means containment. Contain the streets. Contain the press. Contain the damage. I know tomorrow I will wake up as myself again. Not this office, not this guarded corridor, just an ordinary name in an ordinary room. It is easy to inhabit this life for a day. The motorcades arrive on time, the doors open automatically. People measure their breathing around you. Borrowed authority feels almost theatrical. but to live inside it indefinitely, inside a reputation that precedes you, inside a scandal that never concludes, that is different. There is no private version of this identity left, only calibrated exposure. I stand by the window. The city lights of Minsk flicker below, indifferent. Power looks solid from a distance. Up close, it is conditional, negotiated, dependent on perception. Tomorrow, I will return to anonymity. He will not. And that is the imbalance I cannot ignore. Disclaimer. This video is a fictional satirical thought experiment. It does not represent the real thoughts, intentions, decisions, or private life of the President of Belarus. The narrative is an imagined first-person perspective, created for storytelling purposes only. Its aim is to explore themes of fame, scandal, power, media, framing, and public perception. It is not a biography, a factual account, or an accusation. Viewers should understand this content as creative social commentary, not a depiction of real events beyond widely reported public context.